drink in hand, sipping mixers 'cause you can. And all the lights begin to switch off. You're chasing the light, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the light, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, holding on for holding on for life, feeding the high, chasing the night, chasing the night. Hotel rooms and city squares, champagne bottles, drum and snare. The sights and cities seem to fall away when you stay. Locked in love for a night or two, losing sleep just to get off you. Day to day you wanna stay out, you're chasing the light, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the light, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, holding on for feeling the high, chasing the night, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the night, chasing the night.
We're living for the moment now, we're one with the world. I can't lose this feeling I get. My heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. Want it, love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all that I can. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, no what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't be there. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Lifting me, lifting you. Can't go alone, let's do by two. Doing this together, it's me by you. All through the night, all through the night. This is me, this is you. When we get together, we can all pull through. I don't ever ever wanna stop this groove. Let's get it right. Take it to the Lord, then take it to the grave. Listen to the wise man, tell me what he say. Listen to your heartbeat like it still bleed. A little bit of hope, yeah, it's what we still need. Say a little prayer for the moment. Give what you got, just go in. Can't hold you back if you own it. Live your life like you're chosen. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me.
Good evening, wonderful people of the internet from all across the world. My name is George Smith from Racing Club International, and it is my great pleasure to bring you our first round of the Intercontinental GT Sprint Championship taking place on Fridays. This is, of course, the AM split. We are trying to broadcast all our splits. So this week we've got Pro and AM. Pro will be broadcast over onto the YouTube channel. So if you guys want to go and give our Pro split some love, you can go and do that. But make sure you come right back and join the action, because AM is where it's going to be at. And joining me in the box tonight, I've got the beautiful voice of Thomas Crabb joining me. Thomas, how are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. Feel privileged to be here. Even in the AM category of all things, we get more variety of vehicles in our AM class. So I'm very excited to see all the different shapes and sizes and see how these guys that aren't as fast as the pro guys, but still going to put on one hell of a show.
Absolutely. And we've also got Nick Setnick joining us as well. Nick, thank you so much for joining us. And it's your birthday tonight. And this is the best birthday present we could have given you.
I really appreciate that, George. Yes, I love streaming and broadcasting for RCI. The racing standards around here are immaculate, even in the AM bracket, and I am expecting a fantastic race. We're back at Laguna Seca, one of my personal favorite tracks, and I'm just happy to be out here broadcasting for everyone, all of our viewers at home. This is round one of this championship, and any favorites for car choice for this before we even get to the drivers, because this is the AM split, so these are maybe drivers that we don't get to talk about as often, since we have the privilege of actually streaming the AM split today. What car choice are you feeling is going to be a solid choice, George?
Oh, it really, I don't think it's going to come down to car class here. I think it's really going to come down to driver skill. I mean, it's been proven in other classes that it doesn't matter what car you pick up. It really comes down to that consistency that you can find over the hour that you'll be driving. Of course, I would be not myself if I wasn't going to favor the Porsches, as we track around with Carl Mathers at the moment in the number 6. He's currently sitting 18th on the totem pole as we've gone over to just the start of quali. These guys haven't yet set their laps. They're out on track at the moment, just trying to establish where they're going to start the race. Thomas, what is your favorite car? I mean, it doesn't have to just be what's going to win here. I mean, I'm just interested to hear what your favorite car is, really.
Yeah, for sure. At the moment, I always love an underdog car and always love a privateered car, which is why when in the Real Blancpain series, when it was called that back in 2017, 2018, when they brought out the Emerald Frey Jaguar and they raced that around, watching that car race around Spa in all its glory and its V12 sound, just, I don't know, actually I don't think it is a V12, I think it's a V8. In fact, I've got that absolutely wrong. But watching that car go around and watching the drivers struggle with trying to tame that absolute beast of a vehicle. And I'm now seeing Wage in the number 735 car, and he's taken out. So may he have all the luck in this race, and I hope it goes really well for him.
It's an interesting pick indeed, going brave and deciding to try and take what is definitely not picked very often as Nick switches us over to the view. It is a rare sighting, so it's a rarity most certainly out here at Laguna, and it's a bit of a handful too. It's to me, it's a car that is disadvantaged against the rest of the grid. So talking about top car picks, this would not be where I would recommend someone to take out the Jag. So I'm quite impressed that someone has decided to bring it out, and you know it's in the sim. You would hate to see it go to waste, and Nicholas Rage making sure that we get some beautiful English Jag action out in the Americas.
Yeah, most certainly. It's really good to see it out there. Other cars we're not seeing too much of in this split is the Lamborghini. I think there's only one as far as I can see. I'm just jumping on game now, and I think, yeah, there is indeed only one of them, which is, yeah, again, for them, it's not normally a car that's used less than any other GT3 car. Normally is favoured quite a lot by the pro drivers and stuff, so it's quite weird that we're only seeing one of them in this class. A lot of the drivers have gone for the Ferrari Porsche. Porsche is known as probably the fastest car in the game at the moment, and the Ferrari is the most stable, so I'm not too surprised that we are seeing those two car classes. The McLaren is also quite favoured here, the 720. I don't know too much about that car. Do you know anything about that, Nick?
The McLaren is actually the car that I started driving when I got into ACC. I think it's a fun car. I also think it just looks really good. The livery options for that car just look really good to me. I was actually going to comment on the Jaguar. I love the blue and orange. I think that is a awesome, just tough color combination. So that's going to be really interesting to see Ridge come around the track with it and kind of see how he does as we're getting a few lap times coming down onto the board. Jumping here, looks like we've got a 123.9 on the board, currently held by Panizzi in the 910.
A 123.9 coming out from Mikolaj Panizzi, or Panizzi. I'm not 100% sure how to say the surname here. So if we do get your surnames wrong, guys, and you are watching the stream and we completely butcher it, you are most welcome to give us a phonetic explanation into the chats. However, it is a little quirk of our streams. We get to get a whole bunch of new drivers and names thrown our way. And, we are natively, traditionally just English speaking, all three of us here. So when we are getting a whole variety of nations' surnames coming through, you might not get your pronunciation 100% correct. And sometimes it creates some interesting moments, but we are open for you guys to let us know how it stands. But as we said that, it looks like it's going to be Michael van Rooyen actually taking the pole position for the moment. He's gone and set a 123.8, so just 0.12 off of that time that we saw being set by Panizzi. As good to see a South African driver up at the front of AM here. This is Michael van Rooyen. He drives for a team called KK Racing, which is a South African-based team here. And the number 79 here currently is going to be dethroned right at the last second there by Lucas de Jek.
Oh,
Again, that's a difficult name, guys. Thomas, you want to try it with me?
Definitely not. I will refer to him until I gain some more confidence as the number 77 Porsche. Lovely livery, 77 Porsche though. I think that's one of the base colours. As I'm actually just watching him spin out there. You're not watching that on your screen. We are currently watching Michael van Rooyen as George points out, the South African driver, getting a lot of those guys now coming into RCI and showing us what they have got, and they are kind of pulling a lot of eyes towards that South African sim community. So I wonder how that's doing in their local community areas. They must have pretty high competition thresholds, probably more than I have done local events in, as we continue to watch the number 79. As I look towards the top of the grid again, the two Porsches leading the way of 77 and 6. That's I'm going to try and give it a go. The 77 is Dijczek. Yeah, we're going to go with that. The number 2 of Mathes. And he's only 0.051 behind. And with 7 minutes to go, I think there is definitely more to be seen here in qualifying, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And as was mentioned, the Porsches seem to be dominating the current podium position, -1 from Van Rooyen. Honestly, a lot of close times. We're all within a second, all the way down to 14th place currently. So AM is actually shaken out to be very in competition with each other, with the Porsches having a slight edge currently, which is about what we actually predicted for this, with the Ferraris actually pulling out most of the middle of the grid currently, with a various spattering around. The Jaguar, as was mentioned earlier, the 735 holding the 18th currently, but is also only within 1.4 seconds of the current leader. So we'll see a few more lap times coming down, but I think this is looking pretty solid, George.
Absolutely, Nick. I mean, we've got 43 or 41 cars lined up here to race at Laguna. It's going to be an insane start to the race, if not the entire duration of the race. But I always get excited. I'm a bit of a fanboy. Tin Tops starting a race out with a rolling start, especially here at Laguna, coming down into the Andretti hairpin to start things off at T2. It really does bunch everybody up, and it really is important that everybody makes that effort to give each other room And that's what makes for great racing for the duration of the race. If you have an unclean T1 or T2 in this case, it really does sort of spread out the field unevenly. So all these drivers here will be trying their utmost best to make sure that they're going to not be the reason that somebody else's race has been compromised or be the reason that the grid is taken out. And of course, racing standards is what Racing Club International stands for. It's all about racing clean and hard and fair on circuits. And, that's what I hope that the drivers will bring here for themselves. It takes that mindset change from not treating other drivers like they're just AI on track. And, with the growth in sim racing during the lockdown era, we really have just seen such an increase in those epic driving standards. Everybody just showing what they can really do in the simulator world.
Yeah, it's a shame. Everyone seems to be getting faster, and I seem to be getting slow with the less and less practice that I'm doing, even with lockdown. So I need to get back on that and get into these events. But anyway, as we continue to look back up towards the top, it looks like Ulrich in the number 56 Ferrari, a car that I didn't think we would see towards the front, especially with the 3 Porsches behind him, has done a 1:23.4. The gap is even closer now to second place, which is Mathes in the number 6 Porsche. He's done a 0.045, with Winkler in the number 69 Porsche only 0.096 behind the leader. So the top 3 within 1/10 of a second is absolutely outstanding. These are kind of times they're so close you'd expect to see on a pro racer, not an AM one, but they're absolutely commendable to our drivers who signed up to the race. They knew what pace they could do. They signed up for the right split and given us outstanding racing, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely, and I love to see it when it is that close, with Ulrich actually setting a lap that put a little bit of time between them, but in the 56 Ferrari. But these are the times that we like to see. This is going to make for a very exciting race where pole position is going to be fought over until the last moment. In these sprint races, it kind of gets a little scrappy at the end, and it's always fun to see that not be decided until the very end. So yeah, we'll be looking forward to that. As the Ferraris actually continue to kind of pool in the center, with the Porsche still dominating the top, other than the one rogue Ferrari from Ulrich setting that 1:23.1, but I expect we'll be getting at least a few more laps in with only 3 minutes left in qualifying before we go to your lineup race grid. Let's see. Any further predictions? I see we got a Bentley actually down in 11th position in the 169, driving by Gordon. So we'll see how that goes as well. I love seeing the variety of cars. We actually just got out of doing a Porsche Cup car race, so it's awesome to see all the models come out to Laguna Seca today and make this race even more interesting than it already is here at RCI, George.
Absolutely, and with 2 minutes 30 left, or 2 minutes 20 left of quali here, it's going to be these laps that really set the order. And if you are down on the grid and you've been finding that you found a sector that you could nail a little bit better, this is now the time to find that right foot, get the braking points on the left foot perfect. It's not going to be easy for the guys around here, and I think the mixture of cars on the grid was something that Thomas mentioned. I love to see it. I'm a big Porsche fanboy, but I don't want to just watch Porsche Cups. So seeing the Ferrari from Ulrich right at the top is just it's. I don't want to upset the Porsche fans, but it's good to see the Porsche, which has been talked about quite often. People calling it an overpowered car. People calling it, the car that needs to be nerfed potentially. But you know what? It's good to still be able to see that there are other cars on the grid being pulled out by drivers to go against these claims. And that's what we see here is Ulrich has found something in his Ferrari. And he leads on the Ferraris, Thomas, by quite a long way. Down in 13th, I believe, is the next one from Yilmaz.
Yeah, being that they're a second behind, they definitely haven't shared setups, have you? It seems that Ulrich has understood his car a little better, set it up a little better, and the Ferrari is actually the car that I drive with my racing team RSR. It's a very stable platform, and not many changes have to be made to make you the fastest of the AM class, as I found out when I took part in an endurance championship. Alongside the Bentley is actually really forgiving for an AM driver, and over that hour period, even in this sprint race, it's limiting yourself with mistakes. As we are talking about Ulrich as well, he has not been out for the last 3 minutes, so he is confident enough to keep his car in the pits, and it seems to be working so far with 25 seconds to go. The other cars haven't got closer, but they are still really, really damn close. So I'm expecting this race to be absolutely fantastic, as I have also watched a few cars fly off the circuit. So hopefully that won't hinder the racing so much. We do want to see our guys actually battle each other and not force themselves off via error. But that is something that can happen, part of racing. So they'll just have to live with it and stay on track on the future, as we actually watch the third place Bentley of Leroy Gordon cross. And I think Nick actually gave him a commentating blessing, as he was down in 11th. And as he talked about him, he then brought himself up to third place. He's now actually down to fourth, been taken then by Matez or Winkler. I think it was Winkler there, went slightly faster than Matez. For second place, only 0.144 of a second behind Ulrich. So I'm absolutely amazed with, I think now the top 12 being within a second of the leader, and after the top 12 it is 4 Ferraris in a row. So Beckers, who is within that second, is going to have a Italian mafia attack on his rear, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely, and I mean that's always something I like to see. As Yilmaz actually grabs a little bit of time, jumps up to 10th place, up ahead of the two McLarens that were ahead of him, putting him into the top 10 going into the race. That's going to be solid for him. But yeah, I mean, look how consistent these drivers are. This is the AM class, but that does not mean that they are not skilled behind the wheel. Very consistent times here. We are seeing as we actually come to the end of qualifying. Ulrich is going to stay secured with that 123.16. As was mentioned, he just kind of parked it in the pits and was like, that is fast enough for me. And it was enough to hold on to pole position, which just shows his confidence going into this race. I hope that means that we will be expecting a lot of great things from him as we go to the race grid. But I did actually want to take this opportunity to jump into some new things we've been working on behind the scenes at RCI. We now have a active standings page that we will be putting up on screen for you. So we're going to jump over to that just a moment as we show you our starting race grid. All right, in your AM class, we're going to run down the top 10. This is not in race order for this race. This is going to be the racers that signed up for this championship, and the points will shake out for you on screen. The rundown of cars here, we see a nice mix of vehicles all the way through. Ferraris and McLarens, one Mercedes, and the lone Lamborghini driven by number 17, Ray Taylor. Sorry about that, experiencing a little bit of audio technical. I should be back now. Yeah, so we're going to continue running down the list. Awesome to see so many new names entering the RCI racing scoreboards. We spent a lot of time with our pro drivers, but as you can see here, lots of new names and lots of names that are here to impress and establish that clean racing standard that RCI is proud to always have, with a fun mix of cars that you don't get to see usually in the pro. As we get down to this page, Leroy Gordon driving that lone Bentley the 169, and it's just fun to see a huge mix of vehicles like that. As we mentioned in the Pro Split, it's common to see more of a focus at the top, with the Porsche being the crowd favorite currently, with the Ferrari close behind, and we will be seeing more and more of that as we go on. We did want to take this opportunity to say, if you like what you see, always remember that you can like and subscribe to us on YouTube or Twitch, and we'll be bringing more and more racing action to you as we move in through the season into future events. And thank you so much for tuning in to RCI.
So, Nick, can I just confirm on our side we're back to our grid, or are we still on our standing side of things?
I can't confirm. We're actually back to the grid. I did want to throw it over to you, George. With the times that you were seeing, what are you expecting from this race?
I'm expecting a entertaining night of racing. It's Laguna Seca. It's like that American Brands Hatch. That's how I see it. It's one of those unforgiving circuits where you make a small mistake and you pay for it greatly. The sand on the circuit has been modeled by whoever designed rally games, because it completely grips up the car and will punish you for stepping out of line. So it's going to be down to consistency. It's going to be all about pressuring the drivers to be making those sort of mistakes. In the AM lobby, obviously the drivers here, it's a mixture of drivers. They haven't all driven together. They're going to be learning who does what, who breaks where. And, I'm expecting the opening couple of laps to just be about settling into sort of that racing position. A couple of scraps at the start, maybe for, that jostling that we see often, where drivers just want to make sure that they are not going to get caught out behind, but hopefully all fair racing. Thomas, from your side, are we gonna go on the side of what we do in the pro lobbies and pick a race winner each? I would like you to start.
Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to start with me. I was hoping you were going to start with Nick. Normally, I don't give a commentator's curse. I've only done it once out of 8 or 9 races that I've commentated. But I like what I've seen Gordon pull out of the bag during that qualifying session. He seemed kind of very underdoggy, very not suspecting of his pace. But he managed to really put a lap together, and I think he can do something special during this. So I'm going to choose Gordon in the 169 Bentley. What about you?
I think I'm going to stick with one of my countrymen from South Africa. I'm going to go with Van Rooyen down in 9th position in his Aston Martin as my pick. Nick, there's obviously no American manufacturers that you can pick, but are there drivers here that you've had a name on?
Well, I have to say, Ulrich in the 56 Ferrari, 1, I love Ferraris, and 2, I loved the confidence that he had leaving qualifying, placed that time, knew that that was good enough to put him in pole position, and he just sat it out for the rest of qualifying. That kind of confidence can only mean 2 things. 1, something horrible. 2, he's going to be an amazing racer that is going to deserve the first win in this championship to get those points on the board and be a intimidating factor for the rest of the drivers in this split. So I'm going to have to put my virtual money on the 56 Ferrari driven by Ulrich at the top there.
Awesome. So our drivers are leading themselves out on their formation/warm-up lap, trying to get some warmth into the rubber before they're going to kick things underway. This is going to be an exciting race. Of course, it's pretty early here. It's 5 o'clock, so we're going to see that sun starting to rise. We should get some beautiful visuals as viewers from our spectating point of view. And hopefully the racing matches the spectacular views that will come during the sunset as our leaders make their way up to the corkscrew, or should I say to the top, and then down through the bottom of the corkscrew as the Harry Potter car goes flying across the top. That was obviously a network connection issue, but for now it's going to be our leaders leading things away for the race start about to begin.
And before we go green, I must quickly point out, those eagle-eyed viewers of you have pointed out that there is a orange and a 1 next to their number name. That means there is a mandatory pit stop. So not only do they have to race hard, they have to think about when they're going to perform that pit stop. No tyres are needed, just 1 litre of fuel. So really up to them about what they want to take. Again, only an hour, so tyres should last. So it should make things really, really interesting as they come up to the last corner. That lovely kind of cyan blue and grey Ferrari takes the inside. Doesn't spin it like Jardia did at Laguna Seca a couple of weeks ago. So that's good to see everyone all lining up 2 by 2 as we're about to unleash quite a lot of horsepower at that start finish line, and we are green, green, green. An hour to go. Everyone gets off nicely with the Porsche. Having a look up the inside, we see that yellow Aston Martin of Springer taking a look down the middle of 3rd and 4th place. He actually brings it up on the inside, but he doesn't quite get it up on the inside of that Bentley. And the Ferrari is already gaining a bit of a gap as cars behind him are battling out, as there is a position change between Winkler and Mathis in the 69 and 6 Porsche cars. So already a change for the top 3 positions. Again, no one really taking each other out. They know that this championship is a long one, and they don't want to be losing points right off the bat, do they, George?
No, absolutely not. And what a clean start we saw from our drivers. We're currently going to switch over to Winkler, who had a phenomenal leap off there. He's chasing down the back of Ulrich, who got that leapfrog out of the Andretti hairpin, and the two of them have got themselves into a nice bit of clean air, which is where you want to be at the start of a sprint race for the next hour. The rest of the grid did a great job, it looked like, to get through mostly clean, as they will now start, like we said, to settle into those sort of train-like positions and begin the chase down. There's no push to pass in these tin tops. It's all about capitalizing on your entry and exit speed, as well as utilizing the slipstream available to you. But Winkler continues his chase down of Ulrich, who holds down first. Matters is sitting in 3rd place. Gordon in 4th. Springer in 5th. Hendricks in 6th. Yimmers in 7th. Lucas in the number 77 in 8th. Van Rooyen in 9th place. And Naylor in 10. Wraps up our top 10 at the end of our opening lap. But it really is just a runaway game up from our leaders. I'd love to see some of these mid-pack battles starting to unfold. Oh, there is a sideways Bentley in the pit exit side. He managed to get out of the way of the other cars, but there has been a tiny spin around there. So I can imagine some of the drivers there, Nick, are going to be capitalizing on a free position and smiling.
Yeah, absolutely. But all in all, a very clean first lap. That is the kind of quality that we like to see at RCI. A lot of professionalism coming from the drivers, even in the AM class. Again, that does not mean that you are unskilled. So the skill and professionalism is really showing through here, as we're currently following along with Danny Hendricks, who is the 31 Aston coming down through the corkscrew. With it being 5:10 in the morning, the temperature is going to get hotter as the race goes on. I did actually not confirm what the time multiplier was, but we'll be doing more of a morning race as the sun's going to come over the crest and start heating up the tarmac. It'll be interesting how they adjust to those strategies. But yeah, Ulrich getting a very clean early jump on time, as we actually see a car pulling out of the pits already.
Can I give you, Nick, can I give you a little bit of insight into that, who I believe that Bentley was that spun around at the bottom of the Andretti hairpin? I believe, Thomas, you're not going to like to hear this, but we knew it was the Bentley, it was the lone Bentley, and it was Gordon, who started in 3rd place or 4th place. Was it 3rd? He's gone down to 16th place now.
Yes, I feel like saying that I don't give commentator a curse is kind of cursed myself again, as I see more cars now go off at that first corner. I was also going to say there was a bit of an incident towards the rear of the pack with I think it was Bergen, and there was a Aston Martin there, Ferrari, number 22, kind of all down in 36th, 40th place right now. They had a incident going up to the corkscrew. Not too much damage apart from the 222 had to go into the pits, and he sorted out his damage. He also stopped on track momentarily there to let other drivers pass on that lap. Another thing that happened is Phelps on the starting grid, he left his spot on the grid and he went to the pit lane. I think that was to try and get away from the chaos on the first lap, and it was kind of working out well, apart from I think that did put him a lap down on the cars around him. So he does have a bit of work to do during this hour race with 55 minutes to go. So yeah, a bit of everything going on. Good clean racing up at the front, but still a bit of contact here and there. But again, not much you can do when you start with 41 or 42 drivers on the track. It's just not enough space for all these drivers to work around.
Not at all, and it's definitely a difficult circuit to make moves to happen. It's all about really just keeping that consistency level up as these guys are pushing it to their limits. Of course, it is a sprint race here. They'll be driving on the limits now for the next 55 minutes, and don't expect anybody to let up. If you do, you will be caught, and of course, we've seen just that start to happen with our leaders as we switch back to Jordan Booth here in the number 16. He's got Lucas in that number 77 giving pressure in that Porsche onto this McLaren. Jordan Booth, of course, trying to do the best he can with his McLaren. There's a couple of them in the field. He's currently the third sitting McLaren as it stands, as he makes his way up to the hairpin now. He's got a bunch of cars in front of him, one of which is Gordon in that Bentley, and then Rage in that Jaguar. So a couple of interesting car picks up ahead for the McLaren to deal with, but for now doing a good job to just hold off the number 77 as, you know, this is where you start to find those small little gaps starting to evolve. Rage is going to lose out here to Gordon in that Bentley as Gordon slips on by on the final corner before they go and start their fifth lap. So great bit of driving from the Bentley driver. He's obviously out of position as he had that incident spinning round. He had qualified up the order, but making things look good. But geez, the way that Nicholas Rage makes this Jaguar drive, I would not have said that it's sitting out of place amongst the rest of these GT3 cars.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant work from Rage there in the 735 Jaguar. Again, looking at very, very nice. Alongside that Bentley, actually, they have very nice finishes. And when that sun comes up, it's going to absolutely make them shine. And I'm watching Booth and Dajcek, I'm going to say his name is, in the 16 and 17 cars respectively, getting a little bit closer to this battle. So the longer this Jaguar is pulling back this Bentley, the closer those guys are going to get, and this battle is going to end up turning into a four-way battle before we know it. Again, to Gordon, he is out of place, but I've seen some absolutely magical things with the Jardier incident that we saw at the start of the the second round of the Porsche Cup Championship, spinning out on the parade lap, no less, and then bringing it back for that win. As we actually see the Jaguar driver get it wrong there. This track has not got very wide curbs, and on the inside of those curbs there are sausage or sleeping policemen, as some drivers would call them, and they will absolutely catch you out, especially on the Remol straight, as we are actually brought back to the battle for first place. So Ulrich in the number 56 Ferrari you see there, and behind is Winkler in the number 69 Porsche, and they're going to be battling out for the next few laps, George.
They absolutely are not letting go, are they? And you can just see Ulrich is trying to make sure that he can take his ideal line. He wants to wait as long as possible before having to get onto the offensive, but it will not be long until Winkler's pressure will start to make Ulrich have to go defensive. That's not the fastest way around, and that could let Mathers in third place get even closer to these two who've currently given themselves quite a start. I mean, we see them starting to approach some back markers on circuit as well. So with the race just kicking off, it's been great pace coming out, the start they could have only wished for. And now it's about just making sure that they can keep that consistency up for the duration of the race. And of course, I'm not quite sure how both of these cars fare up against each other when it comes down to just tire usage and which one is going to be able to maximize their tires the best. But it can be said, pushing from this early on is going to be difficult. We see Winkler making a mistake in the background as well. So pressure already getting to the Porsche driver in second. And unfortunately, a little squiggle like that here at Laguna. And all that hard work of getting onto the back end of the Ferrari ahead has been unraveled.
Yeah, I think that little incident there answered your question about tyre wear between these two cars. The Ferrari is quite even with its tyre wear. I think pushing the front tyres a little bit more than the rears. It is quite stable on its power application, whereas the Porsche lights up its rear end like no other car, possibly the Jaguar, but the Porsche is pretty bad on it. So it does require some fantastic throttle control when it comes to putting on the power and getting the most out of the car. And I guess being on that knife edge is why the Porsche is so quick. Yes, it is difficult to drive, but if you get it right and you learn the mechanics of that vehicle, then you will be the fastest. So it's going to take some time for Winkler to actually just learn the throttle application as the track gets a little bit hotter minute by minute as we actually jump back now to the Jaguar of Nicholas Rage in the 735, the LP69 Motorsport car. He is actually chasing Miller, the number 32 Porsche in front of him, with Silver really close behind. I wonder if that's Silver that I used to race with back in EEC. I'll have to contact him after the race. But anyway, old habits die hard when it comes to racing in sim sports. You can never seem to get away. The community seems so large, and yet everyone's names seem so familiar, as the Ferrari gets the better run out of the last corner there, as the Jaguar really smartly snugs up to the inside as we actually pass the car exiting the pit. Not quite sure who that is, but that is a McLaren in the Jensen Button Team Rocket colours, and hopefully he doesn't get too much in the way once they exit. He does not. He actually slows down a little bit. Very smart driving there from that guy, waiting for his opportunity to pounce later on. The Ferrari is pulling back a bit now, so the Jaguar very, very smart in the corners. Actually, as I say, that goes right off. I can't seem to be saying anything right. He nearly goes in Ferrari, but saves it. One absolutely fantastic save, but now he has to worry about the McLaren who just passes him, George.
Oh, I mean, that was just talking about the sand that does not forgive. The Jaguar goes and somehow saves that from the middle of nowhere. The Ferrari, I believe, saw the lights flash before his eyes as suddenly the back end from Rage got under control again. And great work from the Jaguar driver to keep it under control. He's obviously lost out to Grandmark there, who's gone in or come back out from the pits. I see that he hasn't updated his regulated mandatory pit stop application. So obviously with there's a pit window that these guys need to pit in, right? I presume.
No, it's any time you want to come into the pits, it will put it off. So the number 222 also pitted on lap 1 after his shunt, and that did qualify. I think you have to put at least a litre of fuel in for the game to recognise that you have pitted. So he may not have done that, as I actually watch the bit of a last corner calamity with the 222, but no one was hit there. I think it was totally self-done, as in fact we are now looking at the guy in first place, Thorsten Ulrich, in the 56 Ferrari. I think we're going to be not seeing much of him, but we'll be seeing him at the top of the leaderboard, as he is actually gaining time on Winkler. He's now 1.2 seconds ahead as he comes up on the end of another lap. You can see the light kind of starting to come over that hillside, so the lights on the cars aren't going to be reflecting on the road as much, but the sunlight will be getting in their faces. That'll be another factor to try and deal with. I don't know if they'll be prepared enough in their practice sessions to do that, but that's one thing they're very much going to have to look out for. Their braking zones are going to look very different when that sun comes out, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is something they have to write into their own strategy as the view changes. I think it's the same when you go from day to night, when you have to adjust your eyes to what is going on the track, and you have to feel what is going to be right, especially when you have to deal with tires degrading and deciding when you want to take that pit stop. As a reminder, they do have to take a little bit of fuel to count as their mandatory pit stop. My theory is anyone pulling out of the pits currently might be just trying to fix some early repairs, maybe from some early mistakes that they want to not have to carry with them and hurt their pace. I mean, we're only 14 minutes into this race, so you don't want to be carrying a broken front end or anything. As we actually see a bunch of cars turn around, the leader's going to get caught a little bit on the side, and he's going to save it completely, but that was terrifying for him, as he has had a confident race so far, catching some dirt on the side. But that pileup could have been absolutely devastating for our two leaders, but they both managed to make it through a scoff-free, well, not quite scoff-free, collected a little bit of dirt on the side there, on the side of Ulrich, but our podium lineup has not changed, and that is impressive defensive driving we're seeing from them, George.
Ooh, that is not where you want to find a whole bunch of cars as you come down around the crest of apexing the downhill from the corkscrew, finding cars sideways all across the track. I mean, coming down there, you're on the edge of traction as it stands. So getting out of the way there was really touch and go. Ulrich, it did pick up a little side scrape down the right side of that Ferrari, but it looks like it hasn't really affected him too much. It's too early to really say. We're going to have to see how Winkler does in terms of he potentially spotted the potential that there was a bit of damage done to that lead Ferrari and might be able to get himself into a better position because of it. But for now, they go back to where we saw that incident occur. They enter the corkscrew again. Winkler is definitely finding some rhythm through this section of the track and does close down the gap required. But really, that Ferrari is just looking oh so stable as he follows his ideal racing line. It's been that consistency that has got him to this position as it stands. I mean, they have been pulling a lead, and the two of them are definitely closing down in terms of split times. Winkler wants to give us some action here, and we'll switch back over to Rage, and I'll hand over back to our UK correspondent, Thomas.
Yes, pretty fantastic to see, and I was just looking at where the back markers are compared to the guys leading, and they are very soon going to be catching up. So back markers are very much going to play in this race, possibly a couple times, especially with this mandatory pit stop. Maybe by the time that they get to those back markers, they might slow down enough that they think it's worth coming in. Possibly, you know, they have to think about this all the while under attack from the guy behind, especially with Ulrich and Winkler at the front, as we on screen now are looking at Nicholas Rage of the 735 Jag. So I think, being that I pointed him out in the not free practice section, the qualifying session has kind of given him a lot of airtime. I think he'll be very happy about that if he does watch this back afterwards. Of course, these races will go on our YouTube channel. Of course, we are also racing, we're also live streaming the Pro Split. The Pro Split does come with live stewarding as well, so they will get penalties during the race. Unluckily for us, we do not have enough staff to do that, so that's impossible. As I actually watched the Ferrari try and have a look on the inside there, that's Facito. Fakito, I don't know how to say that. I'm very sorry for butchering your name. Fakiutu. As I actually watched the Geo in the, I think that's the 119 go off. No, that's not it. That's a different car. So I think that's one of the back markers that we're not seeing on the timing sheet on the side there come up. It's really hard to tell who they are. Especially when you only see the numbers for a split second going at the speeds that a GT3 car does, as we actually are now swapping to the number 7 battle as we watch Gordon gain another position. He practically just let that go, George.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes it is just about not needing to fight the entire time round, and sometimes you're just going to ease off and set yourself up into a position where you can just race at your own race. But you know, it is your race. You are in control when it comes down to what you decide to do. I've often been in positions where, you know, I've felt just too much pressure from the driver behind me. Just, you know, and it bothers you. You know, if you're someone that is, you know, constantly having to defend or worry about this, you start making mistakes, you start cooking your tires, you start to do things to your car that just makes it an absolute handful to try and keep together. It's not fun. We're going back over to our race lead action between the Ferrari and the Porsche. Ulrich versus Winkler, and these two are not letting up at all. The number 69 Porsche has not had a nose to have a little look-see at taking the lead. He's going to try and go a little bit later on the brakes around the outside. Ulrich is very much aware, stays on the anchors on the inside line, and much better off in doing so, and Andretti conquered by the Ferrari. And Winkler now needs to try and see where else he can get the move done. It was most certainly not going to be on the outside there of T2, and Ulrich very confidently gets those 2 car lengths gap that he's had for most of the race up until Winkler gets into this sector, Thomas.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing to see the battle. As just Porsche absolutely get it wrong. He brings it up the inside, but he manages to stop the car quick enough before he goes off. He gets close enough and he gets absolutely caught out, whether it's excitement getting to him or whether the car at that point is too hot to handle by the time he does bring the car close enough. And he ends up losing pace by hitting the outside, and he gets onto the dirt, dust and rubble, and he absolutely throws it off the circuit. So again, he has to absolutely put the hammer down, as his name Hammer Time is suggesting. He needs to really get his game on. With 40 minutes left to go, I reckon he can most certainly catch back up again and put up another challenge. And he definitely has the space to do it as well, with Mathez being 5 seconds behind, as we actually watch Porsche there get out of the way of the guy in second place, Winkler. So everyone in the back is paying very close attention to their relatives, it seems, and very good to see that no one is destroying any other person's race. As we actually saw the leader cross that part of the corner where the pit line entry was at the same time as someone else. So I didn't think that's an incident, as we see on the minimap on the right hand side there. Yeah, absolutely fine. That very kind of bright coloured Mercedes. I actually forgot.
I can tell you,
right
I
there.
can. I was so glad you're going to bring up that. I was wondering when someone was going to spot it. Now, unfortunately, my prediction, my countryman of Van Rooyen is, I see his car's parked in the pits, and this is his teammate Malotto in. Oh, he's gone off-roading there as well. So commentators curse, as I've mentioned it, but the brightly coloured Mercedes belongs to the other Kai K racing team. So they seem to have gone for the bright colors to spot them out on track. And we're going to switch back over here to Joe Naylor, who I believe has the number 77 Porsche behind him. But that's a Porsche that has gone into the pits and is currently trying to unlap himself from this from 36th position. So Naylor is currently able to stay in the running order, doesn't have to get out the way, and in front there's a couple of slower cars as well. These cars are going to yield, and this is going to allow Naylor to get through. So great bits of driving, and like you said, Thomas, good bit of awareness to make sure that these drivers all know where they stand relative to the cars around them on track, and only take the battles with cars for position versus holding up the leaders, etc.
Yeah, definitely, and we just saw in that shot the amazing looking sun over that hillside. So that is definitely something now that they're going to have to contend with. And I think it was Tom Roberts that pointed out he's not with us. He's actually one of the stewards here at RCI and admins. He said 20 minutes in, the sun will be in and it will look absolutely beautiful. And he wasn't wrong. It looks absolutely fantastic as we actually look at the fantastically liveried purple and yellow Aston Martin of Springer in the LP69 motorsport car, as he just grabs the inside of the apex and he goes up the rehole straight up to the corkscrew. He only has a few seconds to catch Mathis in the number 6 Porsche, and the car behind him is actually a back marker, so he has a bit of room between himself and Yilmaz, number 5 Ferrari, about 8 seconds. Again, these guys still need to complete their mandatory pit stop, but they have plenty of time to do it in, and I don't think so far this race has been so much about strategy but about keeping it on track, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen it be pretty clean, but we've also seen cars kind of spin out and grab some dirt and throw it up on those tires, which is going to affect them for a bit of time. We saw Winkler in the second place get a little bit sideways, grab some dirt, and that's going to hurt your pace. But actually, his pace is staying true. Ulrich is only able to get a couple seconds ahead of him before Winkler attempts to close that gap and succeeds. And it's also interesting to see that they are succeeding in different zones. It seems on the main straight, the 56 Ferrari of Ulrich seems to try to pull away from Winkler, but in sectors 2 and 3, Winkler likes to try to gain time on the downslope of the hill and really put the pressure on. So I think this battle is going to continue on as we're actually going to enter the corkscrew. Winkler is right on the tail of Ulrich again, even after that mistake, and he's making it obvious that actually Ulrich is going to go horribly sideways, catch the curb, and they're going to be sideways going at the bottom of the hill. And Winkler, this might be the opportunity he's looking for with some back marks behind them, trying to go wide around the last corner. We're seeing a little bit of a Jardier move the slingshot onto the straight, and they're going to be side by side fighting for first position. This is exactly what we want to see in this completely sideways going into the first turn, and turn 2 we're going to see what happens. Ulrich's going to take the outside. Yes?
The Porsche has the line for the first time. He's going to see a nose ahead. Ulrich, he was the one that had to go wide coming into Andretti, and that's not where he wanted to be. Winkler, with a phenomenal bit of driving, great drive out of the last corner, has got the move done, but hasn't yet secured it forever. Of course, Ulrich has led the race up until this point, so the last 16 laps have been led by the Ferrari. We've seen Winkler make big mistakes and catch back up. So this man has an insane pace. He kicks off onto the dirt again. So does Ulrich. Both of them managed to keep it on the tarmac and will have lost equal time. But this is two drivers pushing to the limits. Thomas, this is insane to see.
Yeah, I was going to point out, absolutely amazing that Winkler in the number 69 Porsche, the guy who is now in first place, has managed to take back what is essentially 2.5 seconds on the leader that was Ulrich in about 3 minutes. And so that pace that he has in that Porsche right now is undefeatable by everyone else on the circuit. And I think I was about to say Ulrich should come into the pits, get his mandatory pit stop out of the way, and he absolutely does that. So this Porsche needs to keep his pace up without the use of an intermediary of a second place guy chasing him down or a leader in front of him to chase. So he has to make sure that he absolutely does that with a 1:24. I think that was 1:24.0. So about 7/10 slower than a qualifying time that he put down, but still absolutely astronomical, especially after about 25 minutes of racing. So those tires are starting to degrade a little bit more, and although fuel was going down, the car is still going to be very, very heavy, as these cars really shouldn't be taking on fuel to their mandatory pit stop. That will lose you a lot of time, as he actually has a battle in front of him now for P17 down to P19. So he has to try and make sure that he doesn't get involved in that, whilst at the same time continuing his pace, George.
Yeah, it's all about just making sure now that the next 33 minutes are all about just maintaining and making sure that there are no mistakes being made. I feel that at the end of the day, these guys are, pushing it to the limits as Laguna Seca can really handle. And you just see the race pace coming out. I mean, Winkler himself has done 1:23.169 as his quickest laps, which is 2/10 quicker than I believe is Carl Mattis has done with the 1:23.3. But obviously Ulrich, who dropped down there, has done the 1:23.2. So a tenth off of the pace that the current race leader has done. And really just it's interesting to see in these lobbies, of course, how often these guys catch up to back markers and things, because there is such a divine level of pace time between everybody.
Yeah, this battle here for 16th place is absolutely fantastic. We're watching the Porsche go up inside there as the leader also has to make his way past, and that's going to break up the battle a little bit as the McLaren driver of Booth has to get out of the way, and the leader takes out Booth in number 16. Oh, they were a bit too exuberant there. I don't think they quite realised that they were that close, and that ruined an absolutely fantastic battle. Of course, we are not live stewards here. We are commentators, and that will be looked at after the race, and it will be posted on our Discord if you want to know more information about that, and we will talk about it in the next round, which will happen in 2 weeks time. Got to make sure we write that in our notes. So Booth doesn't look like he has too much damage. He has come right back up to pace again as he goes back down the corkscrew. He has to catch Chadwick in the number 70 McLaren pretty quickly, overtake him and get back on the 70th position. He definitely had the pace for it, so let's see him get back. Of course, just because you are not at the pointy end of the grid does not mean you are having astronomical battles for your rightful position. So although a little bit unfair, he is doing the right thing and continuing on, as he actually has the back of the shot there, Mates and Springer just coming down that road. So again, hopefully I don't think it's him that had to learn his lesson about getting out of the way of the leaders. I think the leaders need to be finding better opportunities to get past. Of course, the blue flag here is respected, but like all GT3 racing, it is due to the leader to get its way past safely, and that was not quite done. Of course, Winkler is continuing on with his race, passing P18, and I don't think anyone's going to be challenging this guy for a while, so we're going to have to keep a good eye on his race pace as he actually goes off track, though. So any more mistakes like that, he can find himself being undertaken by strategy, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ulrich pulled out of the pits. He's down in 7th place currently. So not losing a ton of ground, but obviously has to fight his way back up to Winkler. That took the first position away from him, and he was not happy about that, as we're actually nearing the halfway point of this 1 hour long race here at Laguna Seca for round 1 of this championship. This is I think this is pretty ideal for Ulrich right now, because he took his mandatory pit stop, it's out of the way, and he knows that he can just hold down some pace and not have the pressure of Winkler behind him, as Winkler's actually pulling into the pits right now. So we will see very soon how those two pit strategies shake out, as Ulrich dodging another stationary car coming down at the bottom of the hill. Ulrich proving that he has the dexterous motion to get around those obstacles and stay strong on this race, only catching a little scuff from the previous accident that he avoided. But yeah, we're seeing the halfway point turn over, and with the leader pulling out of the pits, we will see how those strategies shake out as they come back to the timing board.
Yeah, it is weird to see so many of our drivers come in at the halfway mark. I think watching the pro classes, they actually try and go as far as they can to get the most out of their vehicle in that one stint. Of course, getting into the rhythm, not breaking it up during that pit stop. These AM guys are a little more lateral thinking in what they want to do with their vehicles, just to make sure that they get the best track position for their cars. So, you know, with the pro rank comes a bit more consistency, and with AMS, like we're seeing, even the guys in 1st and 2nd place are making mistakes. So nothing is really for certain, even with less than half of the race to go. So we have already got halfway. It feels like we've only been commentating for the last 10 minutes. I feel like I've said 1,000 words. There's been so much going on. It's been an absolute privilege to run this AM race for these guys. And of course, next week we aren't watching the pro and AM split again. We are going to the silver and rookie class. So myself, I'm not sure who else is commentating with me. I think it might be Nick as well, but I could absolutely be wrong. Rookie class is, I'm commentating on the rookie class, and there is the silver class on YouTube. So yeah, again, racing week in, week out, and it's 2 weeks until we see these guys. And Joe Naylor actually gets it wrong, and the guy back marker in the Ferrari number 76, Huzjak, tries to bring up on the inside, and I don't think Naylor quite realised that he would close the gap like that. Bring it up on the inside, especially when he is in 4th place, and he closes it. So again, the leaders are not quite aware of what is going on around them, especially when they're making these mistakes. I think they're more concerned with making sure their car does not go into a barrier, and then they end up not looking into their mirrors. Of course, using a monitor compared to using, in real life when you're sat in a car, you have more spatial awareness, meaning that you can turn your head. Once you're using a monitor, you're pretty much stuck. Of course, we have radar, but we are not sure, or at least it's not mandatory for all these drivers to be running it, although it is a very smart thing to do. I think a lot of the pro drivers do as well. It stops those incidents from happening, as we are looking at Stephen Miller, George.
Yeah, Stephen Miller in a beautifully colored Porsche as well. Most certainly will be visible at all times of day. And Miller currently running in 7th place, yet to go into the pit to do his mandatory splash and dash, if that's what he's alleged to go for. But, 27 minutes left of racing for him to still complete that. And this AM class has really delivered some powerful racing. I did just want to chat about that thing you said about the leaders passing back markers not being as clean as we'd like to see. And, that's maybe something to be said from the racecraft perspective of what makes the differences in classes. As guys start to get better, they'll start to realize where and what they should do with those sort of situations. Back markers will learn what they will do in those situations, but from what we've seen, from the instances, it doesn't quite look like back markers making mistakes. It does look like leaders perhaps not being 100% of things that are around them. But this is our AM class, and these guys are going to get better as the season progresses. And this is just round one. Like you said, the drivers have a week in between their sessions as the next two classes get streamed next week. So they've got plenty of time to practice their racecraft and they work together as we switch over to the Sky Blue 895 McLaren 720S of this is just a color scheme that I was going to say. He hasn't been into the pits, so he's a bit out of order because he has not gone in, but he alleges to go in. And Laguna does have one of the best pit entry camera angles of all times. This cameraman that stands on these little rubber tires, he really does get a good shot of the cars entering into that pit lane.
Yeah, I wonder whether he puts his legs inside the tyres or he has really short legs. But anyhow, I'm sure he has a good time watching the cars enter. Although a little bit dangerous, we have seen in real life and in this game, incidents happen there. As on that last lap, we saw a Porsche go off at the corkscrew, and I think it was an Aston Martin go off at, I think was second to last corner. So we're still seeing a bit of incidents here and there as we're seeing dirt thrown on track and the track conditions change. So the drivers are always having to readdress their driving lines and their driving styles to make sure they're getting the best out of their vehicles. But of course, that means you're driving on a knife edge and you are pushing over that edge sometimes to get the best out of the car. And as you were saying, George, with these AM cars and the racecraft, of course, if they're like all the sim racers that I know, that presents a challenge to them that they can strive towards, and there's a goal that they're going to reach for their next achievement. And these are all personal goals that they'll give themselves, albeit a faster lap time or more consistency. So it's great to see from these AM guys, they're pushing themselves this hard, and we'll only see them get better throughout the championship as they get to know the drivers around them. I was seeing in Twitch chat people asking whether the registrations are still open. Sadly, they are not. They were open until not too long ago, actually. But we do this so the championship standings make sense. And we really like to show the fact that our drivers do like to stay on in these championships, and if we're bringing people on constantly, it does get confusing for our viewers and the guys who were there from the beginning of the championship, and it doesn't happen in real life so much, so we try not to do it so much in our RCI community, as we actually watch Rage in the 735. Again, we're seeing him quite a lot on the screen today, and flashing his lights at the car ahead, 2 seconds ahead, so I don't even think the car behind is paying too much attention, but he wants him to pay attention. He wants him to make a mistake so he can get past for 6th position. And considering he is probably one of the hardest cars to drive, he's doing an absolutely stellar job, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely, and I kind of keep jumping to him just because I'm rooting for the Jaguar because I want to see the Jaguar really succeed. He's shown great pace, honestly. Holding on to 7th place is still in the top 10 of this very packed grid, and driving the 735 Jaguar in that awesome livery color scheme, that just really goes to show that he's showing a lot of skill and a lot of confidence in a less favored vehicle, and that's just something really awesome to see in the GT3 class. The interesting part of having so many cars on the track on a track like Laguna Seca, there's a lot of back markers that the leaders have to deal with. It's been a point of conversation that we've had quite a bit with back marker interactions with the leaders, but when the leaders are completely surrounded by back markers, not because they are off pace, because there are just so many cars on the track, especially for a track like Laguna Seca, it just adds a whole nother layer of strategy that these AM drivers have to deal with, and our other classes as well. These really packed grids is going to add that extra layer that they have to dance around back markers and still keep their pace, George.
It makes it so difficult, Nick, because the guys on track that are these back markers in inverted commas are back markers from the perspective of the leaders, of course. But for those guys racing on track, they've got cars all around them that are 4 positions. So you've now got the faster leaders approaching you. You know that the Blues are waving and that you need to give way at some points, you are no sort of means needing to suddenly get on the anchors and just stop your car to let them through. That's the worst thing that you could do. It's all about staying on your racing line, and the leader will get past you. Where you can, you kind of ease off the throttle to let them get past you without then compromising that position behind and losing out to someone else. So it's such a dynamic bit of racing. So even the guys that are in that back market position are then being forced into these positions where they need to think about, where they need to yield and not lose out themselves. So there's always thinking, there's always racing going on, no matter where it is in the grid. We currently look at Silva as Fernando Silva, the number 64 Ferrari, holds down 6th place, hasn't been into the pits, as has, Rage still to pit in his Jaguar. So these two currently a little bit out of position in 6th and 7th, but however, still two of them on track for position, and the Jaguar is closing down onto the back of Silva. Silva making some mistakes coming out of T3, and I believe that Rage is definitely not holding back. He knows that the car in front needs to pit. He knows that he needs to pit. And it's now a battle between the two of them to see where they will end up. They're not going to hold down 6th and 7th for the end of the race, of course, still having to go into the pits. But they're still battling for position, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is awesome to see the Jaguar holding down, going into the corkscrew that close on the back of the Ferrari. That has got to be terrifying for these drivers. I mean, for me, that's why I'm a commentator, not a driver, because that just scares me, because anything can happen. You catch that curve just a little bit and it throws you sideways, as we have seen many, many times this race. But this battle is staying solid, as we actually see the 8th and 9th position actually also on top of them. So this could be a potential four-way, as Rage actually makes the call to pull into the pits and get that pit stop out of the way, to not have this battle lead to a incident where it'll cost them both too much time. And now it is up to Fernando Silva in the 64 Ferrari to decide when to take that pit. It's going to be in the last leg of this race, as we're actually entering the last 19 minutes of the race. So we'll have to see where that pit strategy lies, Thomas.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was absolutely the right call for him to come into the pits there, being that he did have the pace. And with less of half of the race to go, it's only can get better. And it's probably a smart idea as well for him to get out of the way, as that Bentley of Gordon and the McLaren of Naylor get closer, and we're getting closer and closer to his rear end. So not wanting to put up with that battle and attacking the Ferrari at the same time, that was definitely a very smart move. Seeing a lot of that from the Jag today, seeing him making those smart decisions, especially towards the start and passing back markers, as we're actually seeing the Bentley of Gordon looking up on the outside, inside, outside again, up and around the corkscrew, around the outside as we come out of the corkscrew, and he's actually kind of, as he's attacking, he's left it wide open for that McLaren to go up on the inside, and he absolutely sends it up on the inside of the corner, missing the sleeping policeman by quite a while. I think he might have done that a bit by accident, as Silva goes straight into the pits, obviously not wanting to battle with guys that are obviously out of position. So very smart move by him. Again, like I said previously in this race, we're seeing some very smart racing, and we're seeing some kind of weird racecraft at the same time. So it's definitely a mix of pace and knowledge and age groups, and this game has captured a lot of imagination of a lot of people that want to start getting into sim racing, especially with lockdown as well. People have picked up the steering wheels, want to get involved, and we are absolutely catering for that with this race, and especially the rookie race that you will see next week on this Twitch channel. So make sure you hit that follow button, because that will be absolutely fantastic. I've always wanted to have a look at a rookie race, and I'm trying to get a couple of my friends involved at the same time, so hopefully I won't commentate curse them, as we actually see Gordon gain a position from that pit stop. He's now up to 6th place, and after that spin at the very beginning has been absolutely fantastic from him. Excellent consistency in that lovely liveried Bentley, George.
Yeah, it goes a long way to say, picking yourself up after rough and tumble is always a hard thing to do. Being able to get your head back in the game and be able to focus on what needs to be done. The task at hand, which has been this Bentley's #1 goal, get back up towards the front of the order. He was down in 16th, 17th place, I believe, and has made his way all the way back up to 6th. So phenomenal drive has come out so far. Still 16 minutes remain for more to be shown from our Bentley driver. But currently he's got Winkler ahead of him, who is a fair way up the field for now, but has been into the pits. Our two leaders, Mathis and Springer, of course, are going to jump into the field, jump into the pits. So it will be interesting. Or they are in the pits. Mathis is into the pits. So this may be interesting to see where they come out relative to the likes of Gordon. If Gordon will get on by and secure himself another position. It is kind of difficult to kind of predict where the final standings will be until everybody's gone into the pits, with no pit window set to be here. Just before, up until your final lap, you can still go into the pits here. So people like the number 9, 10 in 7th place are going to kind of see where they're going to jump in. It might be too late, it might be just the right call, but it's going to change up across the order.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt a little bit, but that has brought Ulrich up into provisional first place. He has passed both the Porsches, and they've all completed their pit stops, with Mathez in the number 6 Porsche, now 6 seconds behind Ulrich. So Ulrich coming in early and producing the pace that he's been doing all right has brought him up, and he's not too far behind Springer. Springer is coming up to the last 3 corners of the circuit. In fact, he's at the 2nd corner now, and Ulrich is coming up to the corkscrew. So that's well within his limits to overtake during his mandatory pit stop and take the lead with about 15 minutes to go, but he's not coming to the pits yet. I wonder how long Springer will keep his car out. Of course, I imagine he was going for the ultimate overcut as one of the last cars to come in and complete that mandatory pit stop. The next car down the list who hasn't completed it is Poinesi in the number 910 Porsche, down in 7th place. Of course, not too far behind Naylor and Gordon, of which that battle is starting to heat up a little bit. They haven't left each other, but it almost seems like Naylor is following Gordon's lines in most corners, and he's just keeping pace, maybe knowing that he may not be able to stay with him if he was on his own, but he's definitely attacking now as we continue to watch Thornton and Ulrich on our own screens of the RCI R1 car. That the RCI, I don't think, is affiliated with us, but nice to have RCI in the name anyway, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to point out that the lap times between the two cars fighting for first place that we've seen this race, Ulrich and Winkler, Ulrich has maintained a second or two ahead of Winkler's pace. So that is him just fighting for distance, and he's actually still gaining time on his own personal delta as we speak. So this is the kind of pace that I was expecting out of Ulrich in the 56 Ferrari. This is a huge lead that he has currently on Winkler, who is really fighting for the first position. But actually, Mathis being a something of a threat, being 6 seconds down currently with 13 minutes to go. That is not a lot of time, as that opportunity is quickly closing. But we could be seeing a bit of a change for the podium fight, as Gordon's actually moved up into 5th with Winkler in 4th, and Springer's still not taking that pit. So as you see on the time board, Springer is still in first place currently, but has not taken that mandatory pit stop. So that is putting Ulrich, Mathis, and Winkler as your current podium going into the last 12 minutes of this race, George.
Yeah, this is what you want to see, Nick, right? This is the 12 minutes or the 10 minutes shootout that starts to brew up at the end of these sprint races, and everybody's pit strategies are almost fully committed, bar Springer and the number 910, of course. But for the guys that are out on track at the moment, it really is now about seeing the end of the race off and making sure that you haven't changed tires. So the last 10 minutes or last even 15 minutes, depending on how hard you've pushed, really become that battle with grip game. And at the same time, we watch Ulrich needing to pass a back marker and has made a big mistake, a contact with a back marker. And this is what we're saying. in the last closing factors, this is where you are going to not want to make mistakes, and we're going to see Mathis's Porsche, that green machine, go flying on by and taking second place after the exit of the corkscrew. So Ulrich, in the closing phases, making a big mistake there, coming into contact with the back marker, and just giving that position over now to the Porsche. Now, Carl Mathis needs to make sure that his gift that was given does not get passed on to somebody else. And by that, I mean Ulrich, who is back on track. So if he holds this off, he's just secured a second place within the closing factors of the race, Thomas.
Yeah, it's just absolutely fantastic. We don't see him put a foot wrong for the last 50 minutes, and then he gets it wrong when he executed to perfection his strategy. And I don't want to be that, I don't want to get into the head of that driver, because I can imagine so many expletives that I could never say on the internet ever in a million years. But still, second place is absolutely fantastic for him in the championship, but not what you want to have when you have been leading this race so dominantly. Even when that Porsche just did get in front of you, you know, you pull into the pits and you make sure that you run your own pace and you do your race to the best of your ability, come out in front, and then absolutely bin it on your own accord is just absolutely heartbreaking to see, but makes it absolutely entertaining for the rest of us in the comms box here. So we watch Mathis there in the number 6 Porsche bring it up around the last corner, actually gets it wide, trying to go past Silver in the number 64 Ferrari, and Silver kind of plants it, I think, realizing that if he's going to make a mistake, he is going to continue on his race. He doesn't want to stop his own race just because the leader is coming by, but he does kind of do so again. He does give him the line, and the leader, not the leader, guy in second place, absolutely hits him off again. That is 2 incidents, and he could have easily had the inside there. He went in too deep, went in too fast. He's made too many mistakes, and that's definitely something that we'll be looking at after the race. But of course, that's brought the number 56 of Ulrich right up on his rear again, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And those penalties that might be going out for those incidents, those could hurt these drivers. I mean, that is now a repeat offense. So our in-house stewards will be looking at that for sure, and that might shake up our final standings, and that is something that these drivers do not want. So Ulrich is just going to fly by as if that green machine Porsche is not even moving, flying into the corkscrew. That is a very aggressive moves. Ulrich is taking that lead position back from him because he does not want to lose it. He made that devastating mistake earlier and lost all that time, but he's fighting back for it. This battle is going to go into the final corner as we have at least a few more laps here. We have 8 minutes to go. They are going to be fighting down at the main straight, but this pace is really impressive. Mathis laid low for the first half of the race and let the other two battle it out, but now he is here to win it, as he's actually going to try to take a little bit of a wider take on the apex, fighting for that pace. But Ulrich is trying to get a little bit of distance ahead of them, holding on to just 0.4 4 tenths, and this is going to be very aggressive and terrifying to watch, George.
Oh, it is, it is that knife fight that, as viewers, you hope brews up as drivers. The circumstances leading up to why these two cars are next to each other is most unfortunate, but for the viewers, a knife fight for second and third with 8 minutes left to go of the race. This is what we wanted to see, and Ulrich needs to hold off. He made that mistake, Nick. You talked about it earlier. He doesn't want to do the same thing again. They are going to encounter back markers during the next couple of laps as things close down, and Ulrich and Mathis are not yielding out. The Porsche does seem to be dropping off the back of Ulrich. He did make up a lot of time to catch back up to take second place as well. But at the same time, Mathis has had a great race to get into this position. So second and third are not yet yielding up. Thomas, did you spot something off camera that I missed?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't believe I watched this happen. I was just catching up on Springer, our first place guy who hadn't actually completed his pit stop. I was looking at their battle, and the speed that they were going during their battle meant that he may have had time to get out of the pit lane whilst he, before the two guys behind him, but he hit the inside of the tire barrier and he did a full 360. He went 180. He started throttling the car to a max amount, and he spun it back around and straight into his pit box. And of course that I think his pit entry was definitely too fast as well, as he has a drive-through as well. So not the best for Springer there in that moment in time. He could have had an absolute chance to battle for the top three, but he messed it up on the entry to the pit, and it was pretty spectacular to see.
It is, and on our main camera, whilst that was going on, we saw Matters run into the back of Ulrich down at the bottom of Andretti on the starts of this lap that they're currently on. So that Porsche definitely not doing well on those braking points down into the T2, having collided with Silva, the back marker, earlier on, and then into the back of Ulrich, who he did let off the throttle and allow the Ferrari driver in the lead at the moment to take that position back. But aggressive driving, it is the nature of racing, I suppose, when you are sort of in that new element. Again, late on the brakes, you see he's going to try and stay to the outside this time of the Ferrari, but Ulrich is just so quick on this opening sector of Laguna. He has that nailed opening sector just down, and Matters struggles to get by here. We see coming up to the corkscrew, though, that's when the Porsche seems to then reel him back in. And with 5 minutes left to go, this is the battle for first and second. Of course, Springer throwing that opportunity out. He was late to go into the pits. He was holding on to first, which meant that we were watching the battle for second and third provisionally. But now it's the battle for the lead and second place. So even more at stake, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to jump to the back wing cam, but actually might not be the best call. They're going to go into the corkscrew almost side by side, jumping back in line just to, not throw that car into the wall off the edge of the corkscrew. Coming down the hill this fast, this is some aggressive fighting for first place. This is going to go down to the very last second, I feel, as Ulrich is trying to get a little bit of distance ahead of him, but those late break points from Mathis are him trying to get some speed and try to get some close that distance onto Ulrich, who is going to try to get that distance back on him in turn 2, which as was mentioned, he seems to get it. That late break, he's going to go for the inside and flies off the track. Oh, he tried for it and just couldn't quite control it, and Ulrich is going to get a lot of distance to fight him off with. What a absolute spear through that turn, Thomas.
Yes, so weird to see. We keep saying mistake after mistake from that driver, and it's such a shame. Of course, can't have too much of an opinion as a commentator. I'm just showing you, we are just telling you about what is happening on screen and possibly using our expertise. But from a personal point of view, it's such a shame to see this driver make so many mistakes that he is making, because if he wasn't making them and he could pull what he should be able to pull out of the bag, he would be leading this race, and by quite a margin. But it's because he keeps making these mistakes that he is back in second place and continues to make mistakes. And if third place was any closer, then he would probably be back there as well. But there's still 3 minutes left to go, and anything could happen, and has happened so far in the 57 minutes that we have been racing, as the leader is actually coming up on Rage in 12th place, the Jag that we've been following for most of the race. So the leaders are passing well up to and possibly including 10th place by the end of this race. So the distance between the cars that are posting the fastest laps and the slowest laps are pretty fantastic, and yet the battles everywhere are so close, George.
Really has been incredible racing to witness, and our Jaguar driver stepping out Rage, doing the right thing, just taking a deeper line into T2 and allowing Ulrich to get by T3. We see the back end kicking out from the back of the Ferrari. Ulrich has destroyed these tires in trying to hold everybody off, and what a great job he's done. Mathers is in the background shot. He is closing back in. We're potentially getting another lap after this one. This will probably be our second last lap of the day, as we see a Ferrari going very wide after the fast left hand is a detrimental place of the circuit to make a mistake. the sand is not forgiving, and you quickly found a barrier. But Ulrich, he's the man of the moment for now. He's done what he needed to do. And hopefully for him, he's going to be hoping that Mathis doesn't manage to get back down and make it a last lap fight. But for now, great bit of driving coming out from the Ferrari. Everybody here has definitely learned something, a thing or two. Mathis is getting closer though, Thomas. That Porsche, that green Porsche in the background, it etches closer and closer as we go to the final lap.
Yeah, he is definitely possibly one of the worst nightmares for any driver. Getting closer and closer. It's the kind of thing you'd want to not want to see in your dreams. Something getting closer without stopping. And the only thing that seems to be stopping him is his own mistake. I think someone just pointed out in Twitch that it seems like I was having a bit of go at the driver. Yes and no. As I said, it was a shame, and I'm only harsh because I believe he has so much potential. He just needs to figure out how to unleash it. He's already got some fantastic pace, the fastest out of all of these drivers here on the circuit. It's just the mistakes he needs to iron out. And being that we are in a championship, this isn't this is not a one race pony. We have got 5 or 6 rounds. I will have to quickly look that up in a minute. But we do have a whole championship, so we can see driver characteristics change as I think the Porsche goes off again, as the Mercedes is crawling up the Rahal straight. I'm not quite sure who that is. I think that's Lindell in 27th place. Really weird to see the car going that slowly as we see the Porsche of Miller get out the way very quickly, almost grabs the inside corner of that Ferrari as the Ferrari heads to the second to last corner, comes up to the last corner. It's not quite the last lap yet, I don't think. We did not get a call from the race director, so with 10 seconds to go, pretty much crossing the line, this will be the last lap, I believe, as Mathis gets close. Yes, it is the last lap, so he's gained 0.2 of a second that lap, and he also has a back marker to pass as Ulrich is putting out all the stops, goes really wide in that corner as the Porsche again goes really deep. No holds barred in that Porsche. I love to see the aggression, absolutely forcing his way past that back marker as he gets 2.2 of a second quicker in that first sector, George.
Yeah, this is the hunt down. Ulrich, interestingly enough, there as the leader, he could have timed it a little bit slower maybe and crossed the line, but he couldn't because obviously he had this Porsche reaming down behind him, and he had to commit to this being the final lap. And this final lap could be exactly what Mathis needs to get on by. Ulrich has done everything right. He's really driven the race that he needed to drive. There've been incidents that have occurred, of course, and this is where we stand. But our top two, or our two leaders here, have given us a phenomenal fight in the closing phase of the race. And it looks like Ulrich is going to hold off the defense of that bright green Porsche. That number 6 from Mathis is going to be in the background. We're going to see our back markers just moving out of the way of our race leaders, who are going to come across to finish their 42nd lap here. And the lead and the win will go to Ulrich, followed up by Mathis to take home second. And Winkler will be our third place on the podium. But these two have just had a phenomenal finish and a phenomenal race between the two of them. They fought all the way to the very end. I believe that Gordon, the Bentley, will be our 4th place. He hasn't yet crossed the line. He's coming into the final corner now, but great work to make his way back from what was 18th or 16th place, I think it was, after his spin, all the way up to 4th, just off of the podium, followed up by Springer, who of course could have been on that podium if he had not had that incident in the pit lane. He spun it, he took time there, then he got a drive through, had to serve that, but still crosses the line in 5th. Then we see Naylor coming across our first McLaren. He's not yet crossed the line either. There he goes. He just crosses the line, takes home 6th, followed up by Conmedal. I'm not sure how to say Comedine? Comedy. Okay, well, I'm bad with names. He hasn't finished the race yet, but the Sky Blue McLaren, the 895, will go over the line and take home 7th place. Yilmaz, that number 5 Ferrari, our second Ferrari, currently in 8th place. 1 corner left to go, will take home 8th place and a most certainly happy amount of points. Of course, this is a championship. Every point you get counts. And Yilmaz will be happy with an 8th place finish. Beckers will take home 9th. And Miller, who finished the lap down already, will take 10. Rage 11th. Panizzi 12th. Howard 13th. Chabaniski will take 14th. Silver 15th. Grandmark 16th. And then we've got everybody jumping out, so I can't really confirm the order 100%, but final standings will be confirmed. From my side, that was incredible. Nick, I want to hand over to you first, and then we'll go over to Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fantastic race to watch. We saw a lot of pace and a lot of battles all the way to the end. That is always something that I love to see, is a fight all the way to the absolute last second. That pressure was kept up on Ulrich, and he saw it from a few drivers actually, but was able to secure that win and get that early lead in the points for this championship, and that's going to be huge for him going forward. Holding on to also having the fastest lap in, or getting pole position at a qualifying is also bonus points for him as well. So that is going to be huge for Ulrich going into round 2, Thomas.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to say really badly, as the cars were going over the line, there were so many dark horses in this race. Of course, you had Gordon in the Bentley, you had the couple of Ferraris that were a little further down the grid, but they managed to bring it back up. You had Silver, you had Winkler, you had people like, who is it? I can't quite remember. Even the Jag driver, they all had
Rage.
fantastic
That was
pace.
Rage.
Rage. So I don't know
Yeah.
how I forgot his name, considering that we've been talking about him for most of the race. Yeah, absolutely fantastic to see these guys pace. And like all of these championships, round 1 is always going to be the messiest. And I'm really, really, really excited for round 2, because that means, they'll be thinking about their strategy, because, the rules won't change between races. They'll be thinking about the people that they're racing against. They'll be thinking about their driving lines. They'll be thinking about everything they could possibly change, and they'll be putting that into practice. So that will get, these battles will only get bigger and bigger. So instead of first and second place battling, I reckon next race we're going to be looking at a 4-way battle for the lead by the end of the race. And especially in 2 weeks' time, we come back to you on this Twitch channel with Spa-Francorchamps on the the 17th of July. So make sure you write that down in your calendar, and don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Twitch, and everything below the stream. You can see links to our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, so you do not miss anything that we do. But we come back next week, next Friday, with the rookie and silver class, rookie on Twitch and silver on YouTube. And we'll hope to bring you more action from Laguna Seca, George.
Thomas, thank you so much for joining. Nick Setnick, of course, as well. Thomas, thank you so much for doing our sign out. Guys, we will see you next week. We appreciate all your lovely views, your comments. Like Thomas said, follow us all around. That's the best parts. And keep up to date with what we're doing. This, of course, is our first real championship that we're doing, in terms of not just having a cup car race. And we are streaming all 4 splits all the time. So thanks again for the support. We will see you next week for the silver and rookie class.
When